Hi, Cinthie. Welcome to the House Culture Podcast, and thanks for joining us today. From your studio base in Berlin, you're well known for unleashing huge house music tracks upon the scene. You also run what can be described as one of the coolest record shops in the world, and all this whilst juggling a hectic touring schedule and proudly parenting as well. We're here to find out exactly how you do it, but before digging into any of that, we want to rewind to your early years in Saarbrücken and find out how you discovered music there that you loved.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I was always into music, like at a very early age. Of course, it was more like commercial stuff, I would say, like charts music and pop music, and what we were listening to in the radio. And then, yeah, I don't know, but then every now and then you had some more electronic music, also
Mhm.
between the pop music stuff. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. You can just dance to it. And of course, then when I turned 14 and I had my first like boyfriend or flirt and stuff, and he did he was actually a DJ. I mean, he didn't play in clubs, but he was
Mhm.
collecting records, and he was playing, I think it was like drum and bass or something. He was playing at home, and I
Mhm.
found this very like eye-opening or interesting. And then he brought me to the record store for the first time, and yeah, they gave me a job when I turned 16. So, and the rest is history.
Indeed. And this record store is was called Humpty, is that right?
Yeah, Hamti in Saarbrücken, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, you started working there from like a very young age, obviously. What was that like being behind the counter and absorbing all of this scene? As you know now, like with your own record store, like back then they were kind of like the meeting places for the scene and people finding out what was going on. What was the kind of vibe in that place at that time for you?
I would say it was very, very masculine. It was really weird because I mean, I was only like 16 years old, and I mean, they saw
Mhm.
this kind of like passion in me, and I'm super thankful for giving me this opportunity. But of course, when I worked there, I think the guys, from my point of view, they were super old. I think they were like 27 or 28. And sometimes I was like, why are they even going out? It's just like super old people, these thoughts you
Yeah.
have when you're 16 and like you own the whole world and stuff.
Yeah.
And now, of course, I mean, they did that little like poking and stuff like that. And no, but it was really nice. I mean, they all played techno, and I was more
Mhm.
into like house and like more the groovy stuff. And
Mhm.
I think also back in the days, there weren't a lot of women that did music, so I think they were very happy to have me because I was bringing like a different vibe into the store.
Yeah.
Because before, I mean, record stores were always well known as the grumpy guy behind the counter. And when I was working there, I always see people, they're all the same for me, I don't judge people. And then, and then at the end, like lots of people that just came for me, they're like, you're always so friendly. And yeah, I started a lot of friendships there. And yeah, it was just like really some of the best times of my life. And now when I'm thinking back to it, I mean, sometimes I was like, yeah, sometimes I feel like they don't take me serious, but
Mhm.
I think they did, but they just wanted to get out, the best from me. And like they also, let me mix records, without the headphones. And I was like, what the fuck, because it was all train wrecks, And I was like, all they're doing is they're just taking the piss, And but then when I'm thinking back to it, it's like, yeah, it was a pretty good school. So and I'm super
Yeah.
thankful for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, when you were working there, you were actually learning how to DJ when you were there. Did you have decks at home? What was going on?
Yeah, I had some decks at home,
Hmm.
and I mean, I tried a bit. Yeah, I mean, it gets better when you practice a lot. And I mean,
Yeah.
there you had someone pushing you, explaining you also a few things. And yeah, then I also practiced at home, but I think I really got a lot of like knowledge from that time at the record store.
Yeah. And so, following on from that, were you wanting to get gigs locally? Was this a foot in the door for you in terms of being well known for being in the record store? Was this getting your foot in the door in local venues to play?
Yeah, so I mean, I was very young, and I think when I turned 17, they said to me, okay, you have your first gig in a club. And I was like, oh, okay. So it was like one of the clubs I always went to, and I was like, okay. And I remember it was Carnival. And
Hmm.
I think I posted something this year on my Instagram because I had my 27th gig anniversary.
Yes, I saw
So
that. Yes.
Yeah, with the funny press pictures and stuff. Um, yeah, so I think that was in Carnival, was it 1996, 1997? No, 1997.
Hmm.
And so I played from 6 p.m. till 8 p.m., which was like, I think I did the opening pretty much, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And then there was another DJ supposed to play, but he couldn't make it. And then after was Mark Spoon, like one of the guys, like big
Hmm.
Frankfurt guy, you know,
Hmm.
from, I think he was in Jam and Spoon.
Yeah,
They were quite well known, you know, for their transits and stuff. So
yeah.
he played after, and I knew he was like, you know, like this guy, or sometimes a bit grumpy and stuff. I was like, oh my God, you know, it's my first gig. I was sweating. So I played those 4 hours, and then like this guy came in and he was like, yeah, that was really good. And I was like, yeah, it was my first gig, you know. And it was, yeah, keep on doing it. And it was like, okay. And he was like, want to have a shot of Jägermeister? And I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm in, you know. And that was really funny. And from there, the club booked me for more events. And also, it was a club. They had a big main room, but they had smaller, like side rooms, and they gave me the opportunity to play from open till close. So
Hmm.
for the normal nights, they would open at midnight, and I would have to play until 5. And that
Yeah,
really shaped my way of like DJing. You know, starting it groovy and slowly, then building it up, and just really, you know, do some waves or yeah, just have a nice transition or nice build up, so to say,
yeah.
and just yeah. So that was really my history. And then, of course, we had a lot of guest DJs, and sometimes I
Hmm.
was allowed to open for them.
Hmm.
And I was back then. I was a big fan of this guy called Westbam. He's a
Uh-huh, yeah,
German
yeah,
DJ producer,
yeah.
and him with his label Low Spirit. So they did this
Hmm.
kind of new bit commercial electro stuff. But I mean, back in the days, it was super well known, and we
Yeah.
also sold lots of records in the store. And so I was opening for them, and also I was closing for them. So and while I was closing, like he came out of the backstage, was like, "Who are you?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's me. I'm the resident here." And he was like, "You have to play in Berlin." I was like, "Yeah, that would be cool, you know." But back then, I already knew never make um, uh, yeah, never talk about the business in the club. But it was very
Uh-huh.
funny because 2 weeks later, I got the call and he was like, yeah, do you want to play in Berlin? It's like the New Year's Eve party. And I was like, yeah, cool. Who else is playing? And it was only him. So it was only Westbam playing and another guy called Woody.
Hmm.
And maybe you heard about Woody. He's now doing the booking for Heideglühen, like one of the best
Yeah,
clubs in
yeah.
Berlin.
Hmm.
So, and it was just us three, you know, and it was like super big stage, you know, and it was like, okay. And then, you know, playing all records and stuff. Yeah, and this was also my kind of door opener for Berlin, I would say. And then did some records for him. And yeah, they really pushed me as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's to take you under their wing a little bit like that and see
Yeah,
your spot your talent and to then to put you on a
yeah,
big stage and you deliver. That must have been absolutely
yeah.
incredible. I mean, Berlin at that time, was that seen as the center of this type of music in Germany, in Europe? What was
Yeah.
going on in that scene in Berlin during those years?
I mean, with Berlin, it was always special because obviously we had the wall, and then
Hmm.
the wall came down, and I think the whole of Germany was really a nice vibe because everyone was like, okay, the Cold War is over, so now we start everything new. There were so many opportunities. We were reunited, and then especially in Berlin was a big playground because there were so many abandoned places
Hmm.
and people just went in and just took them over and made clubs out of them, you know. And I think that's why the scene here is so rich, or like the scene in general in the old east of Germany is because yeah, there were so many opportunities with abandoned buildings no one wanted, and they put some life in there, you know. I mean, I was also throwing a legal party, so we just put a sound system in there and just, you know, called our friends, they called their friends, you know, like back in the days, and we had
Hmm.
1,000 people at the party, and it was like popping. It was really nice.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I think the scene here was, I mean, also you could really feel like the end of the 90s, it was getting more and more commercial.
Hmm.
A good example is, I think, the Love Parade.
Hmm. Yeah.
And because that was always, you know, about freedom and music and just express yourself. And yeah, I think then 1996, 1997, it started to be super commercial. It was on the television. And then, you know, like bowling clubs came and this kind of stuff, and you were
Yeah.
like, okay, crazy. And I think that was the time also when kind of the bubble exploded a bit. So because
Mm.
everyone was always like faster, harder,
Yeah.
we want more, bigger parties and commercial. And yeah, this was when kind of the bubble exploded and everyone was going back to the clubs.
Yeah.
And yeah, I can remember that from the time back because I was signed to this label, which was kind of commercial as well, that
Hmm.
some people didn't want to book me because they thought I was playing commercial music. So it
Right.
took me some time to convince them that I play good music, that I'm a nice person. And yeah, so I kind of built my way back into the, I would say, like underground scene. I mean,
And
yeah,
you made that move to Berlin in the early noughties. I mean, was the
yeah.
reasoning behind that just to be, you know, fully in amongst the scene? Was it going to give you better opportunities being actually in Berlin?
Yeah, of course, but this was not the main reason. I mean, I never wanted to become like a professional musician. For
Hmm.
me, it was always like a hobby. It was something I met most of my friends there. So it was always like this was the place where I belonged to, because the scene was so open. It didn't matter if you had money or if you were black or white or Chinese or whatsoever. And it was just a cool place. And with all these people I met, it was always super friendly, super nice. And then, yeah, but the main reason was like I wanted to study. I
Hmm.
studied software development. So, and then the DJ stuff financed my studies pretty
Yeah,
much.
and in terms of like your career and your trajectory, you had like a normal job until I think
I'm a
was
pretty
it
boring person, yeah.
2014? Well, but you were doing so you were DJing and like living a double life,
Yeah,
working in an
pretty much.
office, I assume, yeah, and then
Yeah.
doing this at night, and
Yeah.
there must have been what was that crunch point like where you decided to give more attention to this nightlife rather than the daytime? Was that frightening to do that?
It's very funny because it's just exactly 10 years ago that I quit my
Hmm.
job. I was working at Ableton, which was the absolute dream job, of course.
Yeah.
And I think I quit at a very, very late stage because,
Mm.
I mean, I also had my daughter. She was 2 years old then.
Hmm.
And I felt like it was, I think, in general, a turning point for me because like lots of things happened like 10 years ago. And um, yeah, I mean, I looked at my schedule. I knew I had good bookings for the rest of the year because I quit in April.
Hmm.
So I knew I had like good gigs and I also had money saved because, when you have a kid, you don't want to do funny things.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, I had the feeling that now is the time because
Mm.
also I had the label Best Modus, which was going super well. And I
Hmm.
played my first Boiler Room 10 years ago, which just all these things came. And then I got more attention and, of course, played more. But I was like, okay, I'm hammering this 40 hours job. I have a
Mm.
kid. I'm playing like in Berlin. Also, I play abroad. And I was like, I feel like I'm just rushing around the whole day because, like on the way to work, I brought my daughter to kindergarten, then
Hmm.
did my work, then rushed back to kindergarten, made food, played with her. Then, I mean, I was also married back in the days. And I felt like this whole life was just a rush.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I think now's the time. I feel like I have the chance to at least try
Hmm.
because I think, let's say, if I wouldn't have tried it, I would have been very sad, like, let's say, like 10 years later. And I
Yeah.
would have been probably like, I had this opportunity, but I didn't use it. And
Yeah.
also the good thing is that my boss, he was always like, yeah, if you ever want to come back, the door is always open. And I think that really helps to make this kind of decision.
Absolutely.
And yeah, so I did it. And from
And here
there, it
you
was
are.
always going up. But I have to say, because a lot of people, they're always like, yeah, how did you do it? And do you have some tips? And I was like, yeah, I mean, back in the days, it was different, like
Mm.
the start at a record store. I mean, who has this nowadays? Because there's not
Yeah.
so many people playing records again.
Hmm.
And this, like the record stores are still where the deals were made. It's like you
Hmm.
were meeting other DJs, promoters, club owners, yeah, because they all wanted to buy this music.
Yeah.
And I think I was in a very lucky position that I was one of a few women back then.
Hmm.
And also, for some reason, I was at the right place at the right time, so to say. So I never planned anything. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
cool, yeah, oh, okay, cool, this is happening. Oh, this is working. And then with this boiler room, which I think back in the days, I think I had like 500,000 plays or like
Yeah.
instantly, and it was pretty good for like an unknown person, like unknown artist back then.
Hmm. Hmm.
And yeah, so everything started from there, I would say.
Incredible, and to talk about the boiler room kind of set that it seems to, even in your own mind, to have elevated
Yeah.
your name and got you like well known outside of the circle that already knew you. Like how did that kind of call come into you to do that? And when you were approaching that particular set, how much kind of in your own mind did you have in terms of what you wanted to play or how you're going to play it, or was it just a free for all and you're just going to go with it?
I mean, I got the call at a very bad time because my mom unfortunately passed away out of the blue like 10 years ago. She was only 53 and she had
Mm.
a heart attack. She was never sick, but for some reason she smoked her whole life. And for some
Yeah.
reason there was something with her heart. And yeah, so she had a heart attack and didn't make it then. So I was like, I was like, oh shit,
Mm.
it was really unnecessary. Of course, my whole family was really down. And then, like, I think then also Frankie Knuckles died. I mean, it's obviously not the same like my mom, but it was like, oh no, he was
Yeah.
one of my favorites as well. I was like, damn, what's going on? And then, like, a month later, I got this call. I was like, hey, you want to do ballroom? I was like, oh, of course. And I was kind of sad from the thing with my mom, but then, of course,
Mm.
excited with the boiler room. But then I was like,
Mhm.
maybe I should postpone it. And I was like
Mm.
having all these thoughts in my mind, but then I was like, no, I do it. Okay. And then I never plan sets. So I always go with the flow and
Mhm.
play pretty much freestyle. But there I was like, okay, I knew people watch it. I knew people give their comments. And I was like, okay, this has to be spot on. And yeah, so I think it was the first time I planned a set. And I was like, okay, as I told you before, I really like these nice build ups. And
Mhm.
so I think it worked out quite well because I started housey, deep housey. I think the intro was really nice from Kerry
Yep.
Chandler, this Mommy
Mhm.
Wants a Record. I think it was like the perfect match. And
Mhm.
then also what I liked is, I mean, people know me for house, but then also I love to play a bit more like dubbier, stripped back stuff with, or a bit like, I don't want to call it techno, it's like groovy, but heavier stuff. And I think with the set, it worked out quite well. So like the nice build up and also play some UK garage, and then I cannot really remember what I played at the end. And then yeah, I think it was overall I was
Mm.
super happy with it, with the build up and everything. And yeah, but it was really the first set I planned, and luckily it turned out quite nicely, I would say. And
Well,
also I wanted to do something special because I did it with the Albert Vogt with my friend,
uh-huh.
and he was on the mic, but he was so nervous to start with. And he started singing, it was like super low. I was like, oh my God, this sounds so wrong. But then he was getting a bit more, this is working. And I
Yeah.
think then, yeah, we did a good job, I think.
Yeah, it's an incredible set. I still love listening and watching to it to this day. And
Yeah.
in terms of you as a DJ, when you are behind the decks, you're in a club, and it's great. I love those sets that are long and take people on a journey, and it's not
Yeah.
just about banging out 1 hour of just the
Yeah.
same kind of BPMs or genres.
Mm.
When you're approaching a DJ set, when you're playing a gig, what are you looking out for when you're looking out from behind the decks in terms of what's happening on the dance floor? Are you really taking notice of the little
Mm.
crews that are here and there and trying to like vibe these people up? Like, how do you do that as a DJ?
Um, yeah, it sounds funny because we're always talking about this, like reading the crowd, and
Hmm.
not sure if that's still a thing. And it's definitely, yeah, it definitely got harder to read the crowd, I think.
Yeah.
No, but this is always what I try to do. I play a few tracks to start with, so with a little bit of a different vibe, and then I'm like, okay, this could work.
Hmm.
And then also I try to be in the club like an hour before at least
Yeah.
to check the other DJ out so you can really catch the vibe and maybe go
Hmm.
also on the floor and check the sound a little bit. And then, yeah, just go with the flow, and I try to mix it up a bit because I think nowadays, it's very important that the people have their hands up. But for me, it's more like I play house music. I want the people to groove with each other, to dance with each other. Maybe there's a little bit of hedonism on the dance floor.
Yeah.
They don't have to stare at me. They can do their thing. But yeah, so this is what I'm doing. So if I see the people smiling and dancing, grooving, and like talking to each other, then it's fine. But then every now and then, of course, I want the hands up and have a few tracks. Then also when I do my own tracks, I'm like, okay, I want to
Yeah.
have this and that reaction. And so, yeah, I try to like have a nice ride, so to say, for
Yeah.
every DJ set. But yeah, I never plan anything. Maybe I plan the first two records, so I don't have to look through everything and like get confused what I'm starting with. But yeah, I always just go with the flow.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Usually it
like,
works, but sometimes the people just want to have something else. But it's only, I would say, like in 1% of the cases. Yeah.
yeah, it could be quite stressful, I'd imagine, that when you're first, if you haven't got something in mind to like that, just to kind of settle yourself in a little bit
Yeah.
rather than getting immediately stressed. But it's great that one of my questions I always ask people is, when do you arrive in the club to kind of check what's going on, the
Yeah.
vibe, are you catching a bit more of the other DJ? And
Yeah.
sometimes people are just like, I just turn up and just play. And that's what I do.
Yeah.
And that can be, as a someone on the dance floor, that can be quite jarring, in terms of,
Yeah.
oh, you're in this groove and then suddenly it
Yeah.
pivots to something else. um
Yeah, I think also it's important to see what the other DJ is playing because you
mhm.
don't really want to play the same kind of
No.
tracks the person played like 50 minutes ago. And it's like, oh,
Yeah.
I just played this. I was like, oops, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been places where it's been like a classics night and it's been hour-long DJ sets, and three DJs have played JD Plastic Dreams in a row, and
Oh,
it's like, oh
no.
man, come on.
Oh, not again. Yeah.
Yeah, I like hearing it, but yeah, please stop.
Yeah,
I mean,
also I
you.
wanted to mention, I wanted to add something to this question because
Mm,
I find it sometimes a little hard, because I mean, I played a panorama bar like a few weeks ago, and it's really it's the hometown. I live
mhm.
5 minutes walk from there,
Yep.
and it's always lots of friends. And I know the people are very open in terms of music, and also the crowd is also a bit much more mature.
Mhm.
So I would say I'm a bit more free with what to play. So I love to play like the old New York stuff and vocals and stuff is really my thing. And then sometimes I find it hard when I go to another club and I see, okay, the crowd is super young. And I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, let's test what works. And
Yeah.
sometimes, I mean, I play what I want. And then,
Mhm.
but sometimes I play these special tracks. They really took the roof up of at Panorama Bar, for example, and then they don't work at all on another dance floor. So it really depends. So
Yeah.
sometimes some records work and sometimes not. And especially of course, when you play in your hometown, surrounded by your friends with like a super open-minded crowd, then the next gig after is like, okay, I hope it's the same, and then yeah. So you always have to adjust. But this is also good. It's the life
Yeah.
of a DJ, I would say. Yeah,
It keeps it fresh, right?
yeah, it keeps it fresh.
Yeah. The and is there, in terms of what you're playing, is there good times when you're, like you say, the crowd could be super young and you're maybe digging a track out that's maybe 20, 25 years old or something, and you're playing and you think, oh, I'm going to risk it, and you play it and it gets a good reaction,
Yeah,
and you're like, guys, this track is maybe older than you are,
yeah, that's what I'm
this.
thinking all the time.
Yeah.
No, just kidding. It sounds horrible when I say that. No, but it's. I have these thoughts sometimes. It's like, oh, okay, this track is like 30 years old, and
Hmm.
yeah, it's quite
That's
funny.
nuts. I
Yeah.
mean, it never, good music, it doesn't really
Yeah,
set,
yeah, of
like
course. And
expire,
if
does
it,
it?
if it works, it works. If the
Hmm.
bass line's good, if maybe the vocal is uplifting, and I think a good DJ. I mean, even if a track doesn't work that well or as expected, I think you can always work around a bit. I also had a situation in a club where I played the second time, and I knew from the first time, okay, they need every now and then they need a track they know. So the
Hmm.
first time I
Hmm.
think I played good and stuff, but I was like, I didn't catch them 100%. So they booked me again, and then I knew a little bit, and it was exactly as I thought. So like every now and then I was playing like something a bit more well known, and they were like, yeah, okay, cool. And so I had them more on my side, or
Yeah.
they paid more attention, or like
Yeah.
yeah, it
Uh,
was it was a bit of a better vibe for some reason. I don't know. Yeah.
like, how self-critical are you where you're coming out of a gig? Do you look back and think, I could have done better there, or do you just think it's just done? I feel like I've played my sound, I've been true to myself, or what's going on in your head when
Yeah.
you've played a 4 hour set?
Yeah.
And do you come out and think, I did that, or you just think, oh, there's that one mix that I just messed up and it's
Yeah.
really annoying me? Like, how
Yeah.
are you in your own head?
I'm very self-critical, and sometimes I feel like it's very good that people cannot have a look inside my head, because I think there's a lot of people sitting at a round table discussing stuff, like after a football match,
Hmm.
when they're like, oh, minute 23, when you walked on the left side, and um, then you didn't score a goal and stuff. So
Uh-huh.
it's always this, like the trainers are in my head and they have the discussion. Yeah, I'm very self-critical, especially when I feel like my set didn't have a nice build-up. It was more like a bit like kind of all over the place, in
Yeah.
my opinion. I mean, obviously no one would notice this, but then I get a bit like, shit, I could have done better, like after this track I could have played that, or maybe I was building it up, but then went too fast up, so I
Mm-hmm.
have these kind of thoughts. But then it's also very funny, sometimes when I think I played my best set, I'm like, I go into the crowd and I'm like, waiting for all the, but then nothing's happening. And people are like, oh yeah, but this and that time you played super well. And I was like, yeah, this was actually the worst set of my life. So it's really weird. It's
That is so
yeah, but I'm very
strange.
self-critical, and I think it's good. And also, I think it's good for me to know when I was good or when I could have done better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And you play a lot of vinyl sets as well. Like, how is that transporting, just physically getting from A to B with, a whole bunch of like, heavy records, wanting to do a set that's more than 2 hours, 3, 4 hours, whatever. Where are you on that ease versus enjoyment of, like, yeah, it's easy to have a USB that's full of tracks, but it's then really enjoyable to mix on vinyl, right? So where's the balance for you?
I mean, I always bring a USB, mostly with my own unreleased stuff or
Hmm.
with some stuff from myself anyway, or from friends. And yeah, I mean, I always put tracks on like every now and then, so I bring it. But yeah, playing records is for me still like, it's almost like a therapy, because I mean, I have so much to do during the week with the shop, with the kid, family, then the store, and all that stuff, And sorry. So when I play records, it's really the first time I can be for myself.
Hmm.
And I play records, and I'm just under the headphone, and yeah, it's really like calming me or grounding me, if that makes sense. Yeah, I think it's like other people, they do knitting or they collect stamps or something, so, or like trains or whatever. So for me, it's like
Yeah.
collecting records and play them and meet some friends, have a glass of wine. It's really calming me. So I would always bring records. I think I brought them everywhere, even to Fiji when I played there. And it was funny, but I tried to have like a small bag, which also
Uh-huh.
goes into the hand luggage,
Yep.
because it's very important. And I think with those records, I can play like easily 4 hours. But yeah, a couple of weeks ago, I had a weekend. I was doing a lot by train because I played in Germany, but I knew I was altogether was I would play like 6 hours, and it was like different crowds, different clubs, and I wanted to have a bit more choice. And I thought, yeah, I'm going by train. I have only one flight, so I take the big boy, so the big bag, and I can roll it as a trolley, but then at the end, when you have to bring it to the airport and you have to lift it up, and I was like, was this a crack in my back? And then you've been playing for hours and hours, and sometimes I'm very close to like put something like a wheelchair on my rider or something for after, and then the promoter can carry me to the hotel, because yeah, when you get older, it's harder. You have to compensate it a lot with sports, especially for the back. And I
Hmm.
mean, sometimes the DJ booth is a bit lower, and then
Yeah.
you just really walk out like this, like an old lady with a stick. But yeah, I think it's definitely worth the pain for me.
Mm, absolutely. And we're talking about records and collecting records. Obviously you run Elevate in Berlin. That's, like you said, it's around the corner from Panorama Bar.
Yeah,
It opened in 2018. Do I have that
yeah,
right?
that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, how did this happen for you? How did the store happen? And tell us about, like, the ethos of owning and running this store for you.
Yeah, so the store happened by mistake, like everything in my life. Right place, right time. So as I said before, I was running this label called Besto Modus,
Hmm.
and it was very successful. And so I had a great idea to involve more friends and support their labels and build like a online platform or an online store where we would feature each other, you know, sell the records and all that. And then I had all the records at home
Mhm.
in my daughter's room, and she was very little. And she said, if there's more records coming in, I'm moving out. And she was like maybe 8 or something. And that was the point when I thought, okay, I maybe have to look for a storage room. So I went next door. My neighbor, she because there was some kind of store which was always locked, and I thought maybe no one's using it, maybe it's worth asking.
Mhm.
Then my neighbor said, no, there's a painter in there, but you know what, I'm looking for someone taking over the back room of my office. And I was like, wow, this is perfect, because it's like literally next to my house. It takes me 30 seconds to go there.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, cool, let's do it. And then after 2 weeks, she was like, you know what, my daughter moved out, she was living in the same building, and I think I'm moving upstairs with the office because I don't need that space anymore. Do you want to have it? And I was like, oh, okay, so what does it mean? So I mean, it's like the store, you know. And
Mm.
I was like, okay, maybe I could open a record store. Is that a good idea? And then I was like, I just try. And then told my crew, and they were like, we're doing what? And I was like, yeah, we're doing a record store. And they were like, she must be crazy, you know. And no, then we did it, and I mean, it started very slow or
Mhm.
very like DIY, because I
Mhm.
mean, it's obviously we never planned it, and it's not that, you know, when you plan a proper business, you collect a lot of budget, and that's something I didn't want to do. I just wanted to let it go with the flow. So we got some nice furniture, and also got some other stuff from friends. They used to have record store. They gave me a lot of stuff as well. Then we built, yeah, I think we built it up like step by step. And then also we were only open like 2 days per week, because
Yeah.
obviously we didn't have enough staff.
Mhm.
And I said, okay, we still have the web shop, and if things are going crazy, you can always upgrade with more staff, more opening hours.
Yeah.
And I think this is like the ethos of the store. So it's always like, yeah, we go with the flow and see how it
Mhm.
works. And I mean, now it's pretty good. We have like we are open for 4 days, but only for 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah.
But now in summer, we want to extend the opening hours. And yeah, so we always upgrade. And it's also a bit like, because it's called Elevate
Mhm.
Selected Vinyl. And I
Yeah.
think it's very important, the selected vinyl, because it's very pre-selected. Like
Yeah.
also back in the day, you have kind of a pre-selection, and it's pretty much everything I would play myself.
Yeah, amazing, amazing.
Yeah,
You know, how it's very different to have that kind of like it's a
yeah,
heavily curated selection
yeah,
based on your own taste within there that
yeah.
people can go and indulge in and buy. It's I like so in terms of your stock that you've got in there right now, what would you say is kind of like percentage wise like upfront stuff, and what would you say is kind of like older than maybe 10 years? Is it, you know, how curated is it and how far back does it go?
I think we sell mostly new stuff. We also have
Hmm.
a small collection. It's a little bit part of my old collection in the cellar, which we're selling secondhand. I
Hmm.
mean, there's stuff that's 30 years old. And
Yeah.
also, I have to mention my amazing husband, Meet, because he used to have a record store, a very famous one in Frankfurt for 22
Ah.
years. The record store was called Freebase, and they started in 92, and they started with a little bit of punk music, but then yeah, made the switch quite fast also to electronic music and drum and bass and everything. So yeah, a lot of like the, I would say like the old Frankfurt gang bought stuff from him, like Ricardo Villalobos, Sven Feth, and Richie Horton when he was there.
Wow.
And yeah, I mean, so he has like all this knowledge for 22 years, and now we're together, and he's helping me a lot and supporting. So we
Uh-huh.
also get a little bit of his taste in, which is nice. Um, yeah, but
You
we
almost said
both
that begrudgingly. If if you've got the far better taste than him, obviously, wouldn't you say?
obviously, I mean. No, I think it's different because I started it, you know, the people know me, and I
Hmm.
think the store works also a lot through my DJ sets, because you know, sometimes when you post a clip and people are asking, oh, what is this? And then because I'm smart, I'm like, yes, this, and I have it at the shop, and then you see like dang 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 the orders coming in. So it's this kind of you know, it all goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
Um, no, but he's helping me a lot, and he also orders stuff from some distributors, so we split them now.
Hmm.
But I would say we have 80% new stuff, and
Yeah.
it's mostly house. We
Yeah.
also have a bit of like UK garage, minimal, a few techno things, but very groovy stuff. And we have some albums, for customers that maybe want to have a present.
Yeah.
And then also we got a few boxes from him from his old store, which we are selling in the basement.
Hmm.
And yeah, and that stuff is like a long time ago. It's like sometimes it's like old promos, and then you check, it's like from '93, and you're like, oh, okay, it's quite old. Yeah. But I love to have fresh stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
I love to also play like the old school stuff in my sets, but
Hmm.
I would say it's only maybe 15% old stuff, and then the rest is like fresh stuff, because I think we need to support the scene now and the
Yeah.
fresh producers, and yeah, so
Definitely, definitely.
yeah.
And you've said that it's only open kind of like a few days a week, and not all day. You're kind of going to extend those in the summer, perhaps. How often do you find yourself, behind the counter serving customers? Is it a destination that people come to see you and have a chat with you, or how often are you in the store, kind of helping people?
Yeah, I mean, now I don't have proper working times because I'm
Hmm.
traveling so much, but I make sure, especially Wednesdays and Thursdays when I'm here, that I come downstairs and help a bit. But what I do now is when I'm working at the store, I just post it like as I would post my DJ gigs. And then you can really feel there's lots of people are coming in, and it's like they have a picture like, oh my God, I'm on holidays. It's so cool you're here. And yeah, it's really nice. And it's also a very, very nice community, I have to say.
Mm.
It's a bit a different way of connecting with the people, because obviously it's not so loud like in the club.
Hmm.
You're meeting like-minded people. You're talking a lot about music. You can recommend stuff. And some people also take a t-shirt and yeah, take a picture. I think it's a different kind of way to communicate with the people, because otherwise you always have, I mean, for me, sometimes I have the feeling as a DJ is always like, yeah, buy my record, buy my merchandise, come to my shows. It's always like this, like, give me money, give me money. And with the store, of course, I'm also earning money, but
Mm.
people can also come around without buying anything. We also have a beer here, and especially in summer, we do some kind of events. When everyone's welcome, we give out some free beer, and yeah, it's a really nice community, and also a very nice way of connecting with people in a different way. So not in the environment of like a club night and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and just like what a record store used to be, right? These people
Yeah.
all connecting and all meeting. It's kind of like the original. So before social media, and people
Yeah.
connecting via that, these are the destinations that people have to physically go to
Yeah.
to meet other
And I think
like-minded people.
nowadays it's really important because we do so much, online. We buy our music online, we buy the food online, we make friends online, and
Hmm.
and I feel like, yeah, we need to live the life a bit more offline. It's just so beautiful out there, and you're meeting so many different kind of people. With some people, you agree with their opinions, with some not, but then with
Hmm.
some you meet in the middle. And I think it's really, really, really good. And I'm kind of missing this sometimes, because everyone in the world of the internet, everyone has an opinion, and
Yeah.
then sometimes also the opinions get lost because someone's answering, and then and also for me, I'm not a native English speaking person, so I gave up like having discussions on the internet, because it gets lost, and then you get
Yeah.
misunderstood, and then you answer to something while 10 other people already answered to this, and then it's like totally out of context. And but here in the store, you can discuss things, you can have a laugh, you can, you know poke people a bit, and stuff like that. So yeah,
Uh,
that's really nice.
yeah, and you get a lot more nuance, don't you, when you're physically talking to someone rather
Yeah,
than
and then you don't get misunderstood like
yeah.
in
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
most of the
And
times. Yeah, so,
we're talking about your store. Also, your studio in Berlin is very famous. Also, is it local to where you are right now? Is it very quick walk to get to? And and also just in general,
yeah,
it's got that. We've all seen videos of it. It's got a lot of vintage equipment. I feel like
yeah,
you've been very reverential in terms of the things that you've been bringing into your studio to create your music. How did
mhm,
you build that up, and how meaningful is it for you to have a studio to exist in?
yeah. Yeah, it's funny. The my studio, aka the Roland Museum. um, no, it's really for me. It's really important. I mean, I always. When did I had my first release? I think it must have been like 1999,
Mm,
2000. Like on the label I was talking about like earlier.
mhm,
Yes, I always wanted to make music, but then back in the days, we didn't have YouTube, so you had to find your own way. I didn't have many friends that were producers, and then only in Berlin I found people that did music. So, and I did some stuff together with some friends. They had a big studio, so I was learning from them. And then obviously I finished my studies. I had my first job, so with the producing was always like an up and down. Then I had my daughter, and I think I really restarted this producer career in like uh, 2010, 11 when I started the Beste Modus label. Because
mhm,
then I also felt like, cool, I'm free because I have the label. I can pretty much release what I want. Yeah, I really have my own thing. I'm independent, and yeah, then also had more time to concentrate on studio things, and then finally could improve my skills. And I mean, I worked for Ableton. I know the software in and out, and I love it, and it's really the best thing. But at some point, I was like, I feel a bit like, I'm sitting in front of the computer and reading my emails, like so to say.
uh-huh,
And there's nothing wrong with that. But I was then in the studio from some friends from the cab drivers. I was in Paris in the studio from Leopold, and they had all these machines, and I was like, wow, this is so cool. And also they have it like a bit more high up, so you could stand in front of it and you could actually like jam, move your hips a bit. And I was like, wow, this is so much more making music, although you're
mhm,
also only pressing the buttons, so to say. It's not
mhm.
that I'm playing guitar or something. And I was like, wow, this is so cool. And then I was like, yeah, maybe let's look around in the second-hand page if maybe someone's gonna sell a 909. I'm
Uh-huh.
sure no one would sell it. And then there was exactly was a 707, an 808, and a 909. And I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna be bankrupt. I'm not, a big, I'm not a big money spender anyway, so I don't wear fancy clothes and stuff, and I don't have crazy cars. And I was like, yeah, I mean, what's better than investing in yourself?
Uh-huh. Yep.
So, I mean, the stuff was a bit pricey, but still like reasonable price. And I was like, yeah, even if I don't like it in a few years, can still sell it.
Yeah.
I bought the stuff, and then yeah, an old friend of mine, he did all the content, or he's still doing all the content for electronic beats,
Mhm, mhm,
and he's also yeah, very good producer, and from around like I always say Frankfurt. He's gonna hate me for that, but it's like, yeah, Frankfurt, Mainz, this kind of area. And yeah,
mhm,
he's been building a lot of studios in his life, and yeah, he saw that I'm making the switch to like analog stuff, and then he was
mm.
like, yeah, I'm coming round to the studio and want to have a look. And it was so funny. We wanted to have ice cream, and then it reminded me a bit of my dad, when he visited me, and he was like, I think there's something wrong with the washing machine. I think I'm gonna check it out. And then you don't see him for the whole day because he's doing all these electric stuff. And so it was a bit like, yeah, he was like, yeah, cool. How did you know that you can trigger the SH101 with the 909? And give me a cable. And then he was there, was super excited as well. And so now we kind of had to have the studio together.
Mm,
And the agreement is that when I'm not there on tour, he's gonna have it. He makes sure I have always the latest drivers. It's up to date, everything's working. And also he gave me a few pieces. And then yeah, sometimes when he can test some stuff for electronic beats, he puts it in for a couple of weeks. I can also test it, and I think it's really good. But yeah, I mean, over the years, I also collected some stuff I bought. I think I bought pretty much the Roland collection. I wanted to have a set, so yeah.
uh-huh.
And it's yeah, and also he gives me good tips, in what to buy, because he's very um, I mean, he has a lot of knowledge, and of course, he's lots older, so he has a bit more knowledge and stuff. And yeah, he's always like, I saw this on like in the secondhand market. I think it's really good for pets and this, and uh, because some people think it's like, yeah, why do you have all these things? It's
Mm,
like you have 5 drum machines. Do you need them? It's like, yeah, because everything is making different kind of drums. And so you have all these synthesizers. Do you need them? And I'm like, yeah, because everything's different. There's subtractive
Yeah.
synthesis, there is FM synthesis, there's like different things, and different things make different sounds. So,
Hmm.
and and my husband looking through the window. Um, yeah, so it's really, the studio is really thoughtful. It's not just like, let's put stuff in, it looks cool.
Yeah.
It's I know how everything works. I mean, of course, the stuff I don't use that often. For example, the 303, it's always, shit, how does it work? And then you do it, and then 5 minutes says, yeah, of course, it was like this, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it's a lot of fun, and I think it's even when I'm not making tracks,
Hmm.
it's also, for me, it's really nice to know how it works, because no one can take this knowledge away from you. And then I also see it for an investment for later, because I mean, I'm 44 this year, and how long do I want to tour? You know, I
Mm.
mean, 50. Do the people want to see an old woman like that? You know, we never know.
If you're playing good music, no one should care,
Yeah,
should they? Really?
yeah, and I think in this scene, it's like age is not, you know, doesn't really matter. But I mean, it also gets harder with the
Mm.
traveling. You're not
Hmm.
sleeping well, and so I'm kind of, yeah, seeing it as an investment in myself, because I mean, especially in the last 5, 6, 7 years, I put, no longer, I think almost 10 years, I put so much effort into the studio, getting better skills, improving my stuff. I mean, my mix downstairs still kind of suck, but I'm getting better. And it's also, for me, it's very satisfying
Mm.
to do it all by myself, because there's
Yep.
nothing better than you have this idea in your head, and then for the first time, oh my god, it's exactly what I had in my head. And how you get there, and how you do these little mixing tricks or this little arrangement tricks, and it's like, ah, shit, this is how they did it back in the day. It's cool, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And it's so satisfying. And especially now, also restarting my label, and I think
Hmm.
I made one of my best tracks, and I played them, and I played them now a couple of times, and like every time it's like hands up, and I was like, wow, what's this track? And I'm like, oh my god, I did it, you know, after all this hard work. It's like the track for me
Yeah.
now. And I
Yeah.
also sent it to a couple of friends, you know, like the Gerd Jansen, and he played in it, and he wrote me back, was like, it worked. And with a big smile, you know, and I was like, yes,
Amazing.
cool. And yeah, so this is it's very satisfying. And also you know, there's lots of younger people, they want to know how things work. And
Yeah.
it's also something I'm doing now, you know, helping a few people, giving some tips on tracks, or yeah, just giving a bit of the knowledge away. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not the very best producer, but I think I can do good stuff. And
Hmm.
so it's also, yeah, something for the future, to maybe produce more, or produce more for other people, or I don't know, do a bit of film music, or you
Yeah.
know, some little bits like that. And I think it's good to look a bit more in the future, and just try to be still in the scene, but maybe don't travel that much
Yeah,
every
yeah, and
weekend. Yeah.
make a bit of a transition for the future, like you say. Like, look at what works for you now and what might
Yeah.
work for you in the future. I mean, before you mentioned your label, before we talk about that specifically, just want to talk about, you know, and your flow in like the studio. Are you very much like you're wanting to do it all by yourself? Do you want to work with
Mhm.
someone? How are you with collaboration? And when you do create something like the track you just mentioned, how do you know when it's finished? And do you road test things and then take them back to the
Yeah.
studio and kind of tweak them? What just take us through that?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, now I'm a bit more experienced, so I know what I want from a track, and how it has to sound. And yeah, I just feel it. I think it's finished. You know, some people
Yeah.
are like, oh, it's never finished, but I also learn from, you know, lots of people, talking to lots of people, and they're like, yeah, it's if you add more. He's making funny faces. Yeah, I also have this approach, like less is more. So,
Hmm. Yeah.
and then now adding more stuff, it's making it more muddy than making it better,
Yeah.
usually. And
Yeah.
so, and I think I'm kind of, yeah, very self confident with that. So if I think the track is done, I just road test it, and then I see a reaction, or I hear in the club, okay, this part could be longer. I see the people grooving, and
Yeah.
so I stretch it a bit. And yeah, it's a really nice process. It's also very nice, as I said, when you do it by your own. You know, you're
Hmm.
not dependent on someone. And it's like, hey, I need some edits, and can we do it again? And then you're waiting for another person for 3 weeks, and then the
Yeah.
buzz is gone. And
Yeah.
yeah, so no, it's very cool, very satisfying, and
Much more
a lot
creatively.
of
'Cause
fun
being
learning.
creative yeah, being
Yeah,
creative, like
it's been
massively
creative,
fulfilling,
and
right?
yeah, and I mean, I have to admit, I'm not a professional musician. So my mom, she played the sax, so
Hmm.
she was really good. I mean, I can also read notes, I can play the flute, and I can also jam with the piano. I mean, I started having piano lessons last year, and that was really good for me in terms of like, okay, progressions and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And that was really another opening to the door to another world. And yeah, but it's, as I said, it's really, really satisfying.
Mm.
It's that
Cool.
when things are
Can't
working,
can't wait
it's
to hear can't wait to hear this tune.
yeah, where you can send it to you. Yeah,
I'd love to hear it. Okay, so and obviously that tune's going to be released on
yeah,
your label, which is being relaunched this year. Tell us about 803 Crystal Grooves. You know, that launched in 2018, obviously as well with your huge single Together. Um, you know, tell us about the journey that label's had and why there's been a bit of a pause and there's going to be this big relaunch and what's the
yeah.
impetus behind that.
Yeah, so I started the Crystal Grooves because, yeah, obviously I had Besto modus, and that was for all of us.
Hmm.
But yeah, sometimes it was really hard to get five people on the table, plan the next release, and one person was liking this track and the other person disliked the other track, and it was always like, having this diplomatic kind of approach.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I just do my own thing, so I can be free. I can also release my cheesy tracks. The guys didn't like that much, and yeah, so I just did it, and it was really nice. And I think now we're also coming back to this big thing in my life, independency. So I
Hmm.
could really be my own boss, release stuff whenever I wanted to. And yeah, I started also the sub label, this collective cards, and
Yep.
yeah, it was really satisfying to have my own baby. And yeah, it was also successful. I mean, I sold, especially from Together, I think I maybe sold like 5,000 copies now because I kept on
Amazing.
repressing, and
Yeah.
it's really good. And yeah, and I mean, I went on a little pause during COVID
Hmm.
because the pressing times exploded. So sometimes you had to wait for like 1 year for a record to get pressed, and that was crazy. I mean, as a producer, your skills, they evolve so much, you get better every day, and then stuff you produced like a year ago, you're almost like, shit, what did I do? I mean, it sounds really like amateur, and you're almost like too scared to release it. And
Yeah.
then or let's say you have a summer hit and then you want to get it out quickly, and then you have to release it the summer after, or even in
Yeah.
winter. Doesn't make sense. And
Hmm.
so I was like, this is not so much fun. And yeah, you couldn't really rely on the pressing times. And so now this year, no, last year I repressed the first EP again with Together, and also the other EPs. And then I was like, yeah, how are we doing with pressing times? And then my lady that's taking care of me, she was, it's back to normal, it's back to normal. I was like, yeah, cool. So I thought, yeah, just gonna start again.
Hmm.
Yeah, I have some amazing stuff signed, and then obviously my big tune. Yeah.
And you know, and when you're looking to release on that, like you say, it's that outlet. Are you expecting people to approach you? How are you going to work with releasing potentially anyone else's material? How is that going to work, or is it all just a personal creative outlet for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, it's just from contacts I have, and then obviously I see what is working really well in the store, which producers are hot, or I mean, ideally, I want to sign really a lot of like fresh people, maybe people that only had like one or two releases, because for me, it's just nice. I would like to work with fresh talents.
Hmm.
So it's a mixture of both. I mean, some people I'm actively asking because I heard like one or two records in the store, and so it's a mixture. And I mean, nowadays it's super easy. You just post on Instagram, "Hey, I'm restarting the label," and then the next day your inbox is full. Yeah,
There you go.
so this is pretty much the way how I'm doing it.
Awesome, awesome. I know. I'm looking forward to seeing what's next on that. Cool. I mean, well, we've reached the point in the interview where we've been talking about tracks,
Yeah,
and this is where we talk about the tracks that you've given to us in terms of building our perfect playlist, which is can be found on Spotify, and this is the playlist that all of our guests on the podcast have submitted to. So there are 5 different themes, and it makes the full list like super eclectic. You know, there are some real left field choices in there, some big anthems, some well known tracks, and yeah, it's a great listen on shuffle. I think it's over 30 hours long now anyway, with the amount of people that we've
Wow.
interviewed, so it's crazy. And you know, we spoke before we turned the mics on, in that I'm going to remind you what you emailed me, the tracks. So to kick it off, we always ask for a kind of catalyst tune, a tune that kind of opened your ears to electronic music. And you've been really candid with me on this, actually, because sometimes you get people who are just like, I had to find something really cool and really dig through my record collection and find this one tune. And you've given me Two Unlimited, Let the Beat Control Your Body.
That's so funny. Yeah, I think I was before I was into this cooler electronic music, I really liked
It's
Too Unlimited, you know. Back in the days, I was 14 when they came out, and the
Who
guy was
didn't,
hot,
right?
you know, the woman was super cool, and
Uh-huh.
yeah, so I liked it a lot. And I think the vocal is cool. So
Yeah.
was a
You know, I'm all for, like, there's no such thing as guilty pleasure. It's all just pleasure.
no,
You know, don't be worried about anything you're talking
no.
about on this podcast. Okay, so well, a floor filler then. You've chosen "I Got It" by
Oh,
Teta Della Course.
yeah.
Tell us about, like, your memories of that track, or why you've chosen it as a floor filler and why that works for you.
Yeah. Um, this track I found because the owner of the label, he was, yeah, we're friends, you know, we talked, and then he was sending me some records for the store, and I checked them out, and I was like, wow, this tune sounds really cool, you know, and the store sound system was like, yeah, it's really, you know, pumping. And then I played it for the first time in a club, and like everyone was like, "Holy macaroni, what is this?" You know, like the hands were up, like good mood lifter.
Uh-huh.
And then from that point on, it was like always in my back. And every time I had the feeling, okay, I need to push the people a bit more, or I need a party starter, I played it.
Mhm.
And also I had it so many times that, you know, people that always take videos, I reshared them, and then people were always asking about this track. And then I said to the guy, hey, I need more records in the shop, you know. And then you could really see like the orders banging in, and like,
Yeah.
and he was like, we're sold out. I was like, repress. And then, you know, no, we sold a lot of this record, and I think it got also signed or licensed later by Riva Star for his
Mm-hmm.
label,
Mm-hmm.
which is really good because then it reached like a brighter or broader audience.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so that's pretty much the story behind it. So I pushed it from day one, and yeah, we sold a lot of records. And yeah, I still love to play it now. I mean, I needed a
Yeah.
bit of a break
Mm-hmm.
because I played it too many times, and people were always taking a video of this track, and I was, oh god, maybe people think I always play the same stuff, you know, like the same pre-recorded set, and
Uh-huh.
just doing my
No, it's such
uh,
a great choice. The next choice on our list is a Sunsetter, perfect track to soundtrack a sunset. You've chosen "Lovely Day" by
yeah,
Blaze.
yeah,
Why does that work for you?
it always worked, you know. Works for 30 years, why not now? No, I think this is just it's also just a mood lifter, and I played
Mhm.
it also so many times at an open air, or at, you know, the last track, or when the sun came up. And I don't know, it's just like fits the vibe perfectly. It's like everyone's maybe danced already for 10 hours, is a little bit drunk, this track comes up, the sun comes up, and it's like, it's a lovely day. Yeah, I think it's perfect.
Awesome. Okay, a tearjerker is one that we've is the next theme on the list. You've chosen the legendary Danny Krivit, his edit of "Heaven" by The
Oh
Vision.
yeah.
Yeah. Why?
Yeah.
Why is that? Why does that stir the emotion in you?
I don't know. I think I played it so many times at the last track, and it's just about the vocals. It's very gospely. I mean, I'm not religious, but still, these vocals, you know, they kind of lift people up, and especially in these times, you know, when the outside world is pretty shit. Sometimes, you know, I think we need those mood lifters, and that's definitely something. A lot of people came up to me and was like, "Oh my god, this track, what happened?" And then they're like, really, you can really see them swallowing,
Yeah.
They don't want to cry in public, but you can really see them swallowing it. And yeah, so this is really, and even for me, when I had a good set and I know the crowd was with me and I played this last track and I was like, wow, cool. Then I'm also like, okay.
So cool. And well, speaking of last tracks, the last track, we always have a last track. The crowd are asking for one more. You've chosen, and don't never be ashamed, because you know lots of people choose their own tracks as well. So it's all cool. You've chosen Cinthie together. I mean,
A
in
little bit
terms
of
of
shameless self promotion.
no, it's all good, and I love this track anyway, so I'm happy now it's in the playlist.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of this track for you, do you feel sometimes like a bit of a pressure to play things that are recognizable for your sets, or is it just a special moment when you're like, actually, I've had a great time, I'm just gonna bust this one out?
Yeah, I think for every producer it's the same. You make a track in the studio, you're listening to it like 100 million times, and then when it's out, you're like, okay, that's it. I will never listen to it again.
Yeah.
Um, n- yeah, every time when stuff comes out, I need a little bit of a break, and then I
Hmm.
play it again. But
Hmm.
the more music I release, the more confident I get with my own production, and then I'm like, yeah, when it's a special moment, I play it, or have other tracks. I play a lot. I think it was Piano Heaven on the Heist label, which I played a
Uh-huh.
lot, and because it was also just a hands up, and yeah, yeah, I play it sometimes, but also a lot of the time I forget about my own tracks, because I have so much new stuff from other people. Say, oh, this is so cool, and then also automatically you think like, oh, my stuff is so shit, and yeah.
Is that thing going on in your head again, like you said
Yes,
earlier?
again, this round table, like discussing what should we play next? Did we play enough of your own tracks? And but it's always nice to see, and then I mean, I would say it's definitely different to, for example, what Peggy Goo is doing, because her stuff is like very poppy. She's doing
Hmm.
this lip sync and stuff like that. So I would never do something like this. But then, playing your own tracks, which I haven't played for a while. I think sometimes it's nice. And then, of course, the people are like, yeah, cool, it's this track. And then you get a bit of like extra vibes and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's nice. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, so this is the final question of the interview. So thank you so much for sitting down with us. You are obviously on the House Culture podcast, and us as House Culture, we're not just about the music, we're about the scene, the culture, the artwork, the personalities, the records, the vinyls, the situations, the communities that have been built up within places like your record store. I mean, when someone says to you house culture, or the culture of house music and dance music, how do you view it? What do you think the culture of the scene is when you look at it as a whole, and how do you see your place in that?
So the scene as a whole, I think it's a very open-minded, very warm place, very uplifting. Yeah, it's rather small when you compare it to like I would say the techno scene. It's rather small, but it's more about community, supporting each other, playing records, bringing someone a promo. This constant like social contact you have with other people,
Hmm.
and I think where's my place in there? Mm. There's a lot of people that sometimes they call me mom, and I'm like, okay, I'm not that old. No, just kidding. But yeah, I think I'm like, right? Actually, I never thought about that. I think I'm just doing my thing, and
Hmm.
just trying to make sure everyone's okay. It's just pretty much something like a mom would do. Like, is everyone okay? You want some more potatoes? And yeah, just do my thing. I try to push things forward and try to hold everything a little bit together and yeah, give a bit of knowledge, support people. I think that's my place. Yeah.
Awesome. No, that's a brilliant place to end. Let's
Yeah.
call it a day. Thank you so much. That was amazing.
Thank you so much for having me.